Assalamu alaikum, Kefahal, Mahaba, Nasotenis. I hope everyone is doing well. Uh, this has been an exciting week. I'm glad because it's one of the best times in a month that I've been feeling real great. But I pray everyone is doing well. I want to thank my new subscribers, and I want to thank those that have been watching my videos. So I wholeheartedly appreciate you all for that. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share if you like the content. I wanted to do another video for the young men watching my channel, because as I mentioned in my last video, after watching the analytics, I see that men between the ages of 18 and 34 are watching my channel. So I wanted to put up something else for them, because I noticed that they watch a lot of the videos on the topics that I talk about, relationships and dating women. But I'm also thankful that we have a good percentage of women on this channel. I can say probably about 20%, 21% possibly women watch this channel. So I thank you all for being over here. I also want to say this is, a channel for men, but women are welcome over here. I also want to say that if you're a woman and you're watching my channel, I don't want you to feel as if I'm saying anything to disrespect you. It's just my observation of you and my experience when I'm, delivering content, and it's not my intent to be malicious towards women or make it seem like I dislike or don't like women. So I would just want to put that out there. I just want us to come together, men and women, to have good conversation amongst one another. So this particular topic, I wanted to talk about what I would do differently in my 20s. The first two things that I keep in mind when I think about life in general, I think about one is living life with no regrets. And hopefully when I go to paradise, inshallah, Jannatul Firdaus, people will say he did it his way. So that's one. The second thing is that I keep in mind when making decisions in life is how did it make me feel? Did I enjoy myself? And the reason why I say this is because I have had a colleague that I used to work with named Mr. Prentice. And I remember when I left sometime, probably almost about a year now. It hasn't been a year, but it's more like 10 months. I traveled to 6 different countries. And this was the summertime of last year. So I traveled to 6 different countries. And I was gone for like 3.5, 4 weeks or something like that, away from work. And when I had returned, I was working with Mr. Princess, and I told him, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I spent so much money. I said, I have so much debt to pay, and I am trying to figure out I was like, man, I was like, I have so much debt to pay, and I just went on this, expensive um, trip, traveling 6 different places. And he looked at me and he said, Elliot, Mr. Elliot, did you have a good time? And I was like, I sure did. I had a good time. And I started showing him pictures, and I was so excited and happy because I started thinking about the moments and like the freedom and how much I was at peace just by just being away from work. And I'll go in a little later details about why I felt at peace. Um, but this also reminds me of my seamstress that I go and get my suits tailored. I remember probably 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, when I dropped my clothes off to the cleaners. I was talking about him, so now they know that, oh dang, he's always out the country every 2.5 months, and they would always think like, okay, which office or whatever I have my clothing at, at which cleaners, or do I need to pick up something? And so one day I was talking to the owner, and he does, tailors my suits. So him and his wife. So um, keep talking about my stories about keep traveling to different countries. And he said to me, he said, Elliot, he said, you know something? He says, in life, all the materialistic things and stuff that people worry about and try to obtain, those things won't matter. He said, what is going to matter in life is the great experiences and the memories that you create spending time with someone or the people that you love. And ever since then, I made sure that I wasn't like spending my money on materialistic things, even though I like good quality things, but not so much materialistic things, but being able to uh, travel the world and meet beautiful people, indulge in their culture and their traditions. Um, so that's the other thing I keep in mind when making decisions in life. This broadcast isn't going to be for every man. Not everyone is chasing what I'm after, and not everyone will obtain as much as others. And success is different for everyone. We experience things differently as well. So, what one person may want, the other may not. I'm 38, but if I had to go back in my 20s, what would I do differently? Sometimes I believe I am where sometimes I believe I'm placed where Allah has placed me, and this is where I should be. Um, that being said, I try to live righteous. I try to do good deeds, help people. I try to work on my self improvement, making sure that I do things to uh, keep myself in a good mood. Making sure I dress nice, smell nice, uh, take care of my mind and my body, eat healthy. Uh, just do things that uplift my spirit, right? Even when I'm going through hardship, um, and working towards uh, financial independence, investing more into my business, investing more into myself, other than working for another company, inshallah. Because one thing that if you're working, well, I would say this. We need to be the person that you want to become. So if I know I want to be a successful businessman, I need to dress the part, look the part. I need to have that attitude, that what do you call that? I was about to say something fancy. Je ne sais quoi. uh, whatever that thing, because I'm learning French. ah, J. Paul Français Peur, or little. Little French. So my life is beautiful, mashallah. I've had hardships. We all have. We will get through faith. And throughout life, I've tried to keep a close spiritual connection with God. And that being said, I know that, we all go through hardships in life. And a few things that I try to remind myself is that ease comes after hardship. And when God has mercy and grants us ease, strive hard and turn all your attention to Allah. And I also think about faith. So when I think about that, I think about, I can't remember what prophet God Allah was speaking to, but I believe it was Moses, and there was a mountain, high, mountain, they're majestic, looking up at the mountains, and something happened, and the mountain crumbled. So when you think about your hardships and your problems in life, eventually God can say be, and it'll be. And, when I think about this sometimes, even in the recent weeks of me thinking about this, I tend to think about the people in Gaza. And when will ease come? I just continue to pray that eventually we'll see some changes very, soon. Because it's heartbreaking what is going on in that region. So inshallah, we'll just keep them in our prayers and support the UNRWA organization, charity organization that provides food and water to the people of Palestine. The other thing that I keep in mind when thinking about faith, I think about when God was talking to Moses. He says, I like this story. Says, what is that thing you got in your hand? That stick or that staff or rod? And he was like, so Moses says to Allah, oh, I just take it and I hit rocks and I hit the trees and whatever with it. And he told him to throw the rod or the stick down. And when he threw it down, it turned into a snake or serpent in the text would say. And this was an example of the way how God can change something. He could say, let it be, and it will be. So this is the other thing that I keep in mind of, like, working towards success, but at the same time, not just working towards success, but when I face difficulties in life, then I think about this as well, to where God can remove those things and grant me ease and have mercy upon me. I read somewhere in a book, and this is good for everyone watching this video to keep in mind, because this is one of the major things that I keep in mind in life. That it's good for us to learn from our own mistakes, but it's even better to learn from the mistakes of others. And this is important because when I observe other people, relationships, or if I'm out in public, I view how people interact with one another. I observe how families interact with one another, like especially men in the relationships. And I get to see things that I don't like. I get to see things that I love. I get to see things that I wouldn't tolerate in a relationship. I watch a lot of men here in the US stay in unhealthy relationships. Now, we could say the woman could be in an unhealthy relationship, but I know that I see so many men in unhealthy relationships. And although I'm talking about the US, that would be a good question to start asking men. Well, I've talked to a few men in other countries and they enjoy it. Like some guys that I've met, the wife lives in one country, they work in another country, and they love it. They've been married for plus years, so I've met a good bit of people traveling. And I noticed like most of my subscribers seem like my number, India and Bangladesh, they are my biggest supporters and seem like they're fighting for the number one spot. Like 2 weeks ago, I noticed that Bangladesh has been supporting me for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Now it's almost like India have caught up with them, and now that's number one. But I appreciate the people of Bangladesh and India for supporting me. So I wholeheartedly appreciate you all. In the past few years, I've seen how men over 50 have shown their insecurities towards me working. And it was just because they saw that I would be willing to work every day to just be successful, to travel out the country every 2.5 months. That's what I would do. And one thing that I said, I never want to become like those men. The other thing that I've seen from observational standpoint is young men in the U.S. That can't control their anger. And when I see this, I sometimes wonder if, like my mindset just thinks, I wonder if they're grew up with both parents, if the father's in the home, do they have a male mentor or something like that? But as I was saying, not just those things um, that I viewed, and the thing with men being envious and jealous at work of me, so just because I worked, I this would fuel me, give me fuel to just work even more to one of these sets. So like I have this little thing in me to where it's just like you know, like a villain, and would want to work more and just make them even mad. Um, but I found peace in that. Found peace in traveling and enjoying myself and not being in a toxic work environment. I've seen a few videos of YouTubers talk about how they wasted their 20s. I wouldn't say I wasted mine. I would say I would, make a couple few tweaks and do things, some things a little different. In the US, most of society has been programmed to um, go to school, get an education, um, get a good job, get married, uh, buy a house, have children, make sure you're investing into retirement accounts. Now, when I go through some of this, this is not financial advice. This is for education purposes only. Uh, but this is the route that they tell people to take. And uh, I don't think I was on that route. I made a few uh, tweaks and changes. Like I never married. Um, I went to get a good education, but I also uh, have a trade background because I was getting paid, even though I went to school for physical therapy, nursing, and was heading towards physician assistant before I started my own business. Um, I started making sure that with the job that I had that job for 18 years, um, I was investing into putting more of my income into retirement accounts. But even while I was putting my money into these retirement accounts, the biggest thing was I did good put money into retirement accounts, medical spending accounts, flexible spending account, whatever. Uh, but the main thing is trying to reduce my tax liability. And even this is still hard when you have a business and you are a W 2 wage earner. Um, and especially if somebody making money, because even let's say you're someone and you make $200,000 per year. Well, you would possibly be paying 32% in taxes if you a single filer, not married, and that is just federal tax. That doesn't even include state, so you're probably paying about 40% of your income. So the way I looked at it sometime is if I saw a nurse or a doctor and think that, oh, well, they're making $150,000 per year, I would think it was like, okay, well, really, you're only making probably 80, 90,000 after tax. But it's still good money, but that was just my thinking. Um, and when I think about what I would do differently, sometimes I always thought of being a pilot. Always thought about being a pilot. So I always thought about being a pilot, but well, the other thing that I thought about doing was working for Boeing or um Airbus. Now, the only thing about Boeing is like they have so much layoffs, but they're paying people $50 an hour, and that's better than what some people in the healthcare field would make. So I know this thing today is like if you want to make money, you go in sales or marketing, or you want to do real estate or science, technology, engineering, and math. But trades also pays the bills. But over time, I thought about some things, and I was like, you know what, real estate is the best option to go to if you want to be successful. Um, I don't believe I would be where I am if I didn't invest my money into the retirement accounts. I've had many hardships throughout life, and those retirement accounts were very helpful um, when I went through a few hardships. Now, of course, I wish at times like, oh, I didn't touch it, but I mean, I was glad that it was there when I didn't have it, because I was like, oh, well, because it was like I would always, instead of have money in savings, I would always invest it over here to try to make more money. But what I also learned is that one of my subscribers, one of you would have to explain to me if you know it. Supposedly Muslims aren't supposed to invest in interest. And I imagine that's talking about the stock market, which I don't invest into the stock market. So now it's just real estate for now. And so that's, if one of you could uh, put that in the comment section and explain that, that would be great. It helped me learn something, inshallah. I bought my first home at 28. What I wished I had done was probably purchase a quadplex, multifamily quadplex sometime in 2015 instead of a single family home, because uh, during that time they had 100% financing for first-time home buyers. Now, I don't know if they would let me get that with but it's worth a shot trying to do that with a multifamily. And I heard that it would be banks or lenders are more willing to invest or to approve you for a multifamily, because if you were able to, let's say you had a quadplex, if you're able to stay in one unit and rent out the other three, they know you would have the income, to pay the mortgage. Well, even though they had 100% financing at the time in 2015 when I bought my home, let's say if that wasn't available, maybe you could use a FHA and put down 3.5% interest, 3.5% of the home value, and do that versus putting down a 20% conventional loan. Now, I know some people, my subscribers, I don't know how your banking or lending system works. I'm just talking about how the U.S. works as far as thing, and maybe that those opportunities may not be as available to you all in your countries. So just want to say so. And just like I said, most of my subscribers, they are in Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Algeria, Senegal, Pakistan, Turkey, Nepal. That's mostly where it's at. Most of my subscribers. The other thing that I wish I had done was not please women. Instead of pleasing women, I should have been more selfish with my time. The women I was with, when I look back on everything, I wouldn't say they weren't as mentally fit, but maybe I think I was always somebody that was trying to help somebody, feel like I could heal them or whatever. And I had to remind myself that, that could be painful when you see someone that mentally they're not always there, and like, man, something wrong with this one. But you're like, oh, you try to stay there and everything, but maybe I shouldn't have done that, because that's suffering. And just like I said, you gentlemen, and also for you women watching this, we don't have time to figure out Rubik's Cube. Now, in my last video, I mentioned that one thing that I probably wished I had done was probably give the Hawaiian girl that I was dating when I was 25 or 26, a chance, and stay with her. But who knows? My life is great now, so I don't know what it would be like if I, was with her or what. Maybe we'd be married. I don't know, but I guess we'll never know. Because I am enjoying life as it is right now. In my 20s, I wish I would have traveled more outside the U.S. I would travel more into the States, and I would mostly travel like everybody and their mother would always travel to Myrtle Beach. But I would always travel to Florida and, try to go to different places in Florida to have a good time. But I wish I would have saved up my money a little bit more to just get on a flight and travel out the country. And this is where Turkey was my first country that I traveled to. Now, especially for someone being of color, I would say I would think that it's a great thing to travel outside the U.S. because it's like, just like you all have been viewing everything with this political stuff. And one thing that I don't like, just like I mentioned a few moments ago about the situation in Gaza, and we see this stuff with the International Criminal Court. And you see all these countries coming together to basically condemn Israel for their actions. And the U.S. is the only one to where it's like they're being complicit. And it's just sad. And the other thing is, just like I said, even for me being a black man going outside the U.S., I get treated very differently. And I love that people are so happy to see me, welcoming. I don't even sense any form of prejudice. And people are so helpful. And I mentioned this, even though the U.S. is a capitalist society, where you could build wealth, make money. And this is what everybody in other countries probably think, you in the U.S., you do this and thing. But it's going to be, what I would suggest you men, that, not just men, women as well, when you think about a place to live and you travel into these countries, don't just go just to go. Think about places that um, that are safe. The U.S. isn't as safe as a lot of these other countries. Think about your future and where you'll be able to raise up a great family and children, wife, kids, and stuff like that, to keep them safe. Uh, think about uh, the healthcare in these countries. The U.S. healthcare is expensive. I seem to where in some parts of, I think, Europe, uh, free healthcare, so someone, or at least not so expensive. I even heard in Canada, maybe they pay, or maybe it's free. Um, I've heard mixed stories because I asked someone, they were like, "Oh, it's free. I don't pay for healthcare." And it's like, "Oh, I gotta pay for healthcare," but I don't know if that person lied to me. But whatever. Um, the cost of living and food and stuff in the other countries. Um, well, I guess the other thing you have to think about the annual salary and you have to think about the average annual salary in some of these countries and the cost of living um, when doing this stuff. But I'm trying to make sure. I was making sure my mic was working because I don't know. As I mentioned, Turkey was the first country that I traveled to in a plane. I went on a cruise, but I don't like cruises, and I went to a few other places like Bahamas, St. Thomas, Puerto Rico. But Turkey was the first country that I traveled by airplane. But I feel more at home and connected spiritually in a Muslim country. But not only that, it's hard finding halal foods to eat. Everything. Uh, Same thing like in the UK. When I was in the UK, it seemed like almost everything had, like, well, I guess they have a large Muslim population. So I guess I just needed to go on that side of town. I don't know which area that would be. If it was in Soho, I think I was mostly like in like Notting Hill, but then everything was like close in the UK. It's like the community seemed close. So maybe I just needed to venture out a little bit more in the UK. But in the US, it's hard finding, well, maybe if I was in New York, it wouldn't be so bad. I imagine I would find maybe some good food. But I mean, the only thing that keeps me away from New York is the dang on rats. They look like, when people show like the pictures or the videos of these things, it's like they're like they got a bad rat infestation problem, and I'm like, nah, I'm that's not me. That's not my scene. It's like, nah, I'm good on that. Um, so yeah, so I feel more at peace and at home in Muslim countries. Um, Men in your 20s, I think you should spend time alone. And I keep saying men, but this could work for women too. And I have, women watching my channel. Um, so spend time alone and, get to thinking and wonder why Allah or God has placed you here. We all have a contribution to give back to society. Maybe you become a great leader one day. Maybe you work for your local communities. Maybe you work in the masjid, maybe you work at the churches, at the synagogues. Uh, Maybe you become a successful business owner and find some way to give back to the communities. Um, Another thing I suggest is you all read more books, listen to less music. So another thing I do when I am driving, instead of listening to music, I listen to audiobooks and learn something. The other thing is I am learning. Um, so I'm learning Arabic. So let's see if I can do it. Ana uridu. Let me see. Ana uridu an ta'alam bin Arabiya. I want to learn Arabic. Um, Find a mentor, learn new skills. I am learning multiple languages, not just Arabic, so French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese. Kind of thing on Portuguese, but it's close to Spanish, but at the same time, I haven't been consistent as much with the others. But eventually it'll come, inshallah. Um, you can network with others on LinkedIn that are uh, basically going in the same direction as you. Um, don't be afraid to fail. Take calculated risks. And as a man, they said you could fail in your 20s, 30s. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't want to take the risk in my 40s to keep failing, not unless I'm already, set up with a good bit of resources, lots of income and assets for me to take big risk, but take calculated risk, right? Um, don't do it to where you fail and lose everything at 40. Man, but some people have done it. I know it's anecdotal. I have a friend, Mr. T. I knew him since I was probably a teenager. And let me see, if I was 19, he probably was in his 40s or something like that. And, my dad is deceased. So I would always look at great men to where they could be mentors. And this is what I mean is like you men that don't have a father figure, it's good to have men in your life that are older and have wisdom, and not just any man, but a man that is intelligent, responsible, has wisdom, and that could teach you some things. But I noticed that not so many younger men in the communities in the U.S. are willing to learn from an older man. Some are, but I'm just using a generalization to get, to talk about the majority. But my friend, Mr. T, I watched this man go through a few hardships in life and, divorce, child support, paying over $1,500 or so per month and all this other stuff. And now, as I get to speak to him for the last couple of months, he's so happy. He's doing well for himself, makes good money, makes over 200K, has a nice home, has nice multiple cars, travels throughout the U.S. often. I don't hear him talking about leaving the country, traveling throughout the U.S. And then he has another younger wife. So, mashallah to him. Um, so another thing, with me traveling to these different countries, um, I had these two colleagues. They like to see my pictures and stuff when I go away. Well, you know what? Let me go back. Let me put something for the woman. Now, I said something to where to help the men, but let me put something here for 20-something-year-old women. So I had these two young ladies, because I don't really call people friends, but they almost like a friend, but I have a criteria for friends. These two young ladies, and surprisingly, both of their names is Samantha. And I remember speaking to both of these young ladies, and one Samantha, she should be 23. And I've been telling her this since she was 21 when I met her, same as this other Samantha. I don't know her age, but I saw her a few days ago. And this is why it dawned on me, like even coming up with this script. And I remember telling these young ladies, like, you're young, you need to, if you're dating a guy, you're in your prime years of your life, you don't have time to play around in your 20s, and then when you get to your 30s, then you're saying that you wasted life or the men that you dated waste your time, and you start to resent men. And what I told them, making sure that they stay fit, stay in the gym, look nice, dress up nice, looking nice, and try to, if they have a boyfriend, if they've been with the guy for a year or two, so try to hurry up and get married, because you don't have a lot of time as men. Just like what I just mentioned, men could fail. And the reason why I say this for men are looked at as providers. If something goes wrong, his family and the wife's family are going to look at him. And this is why I say for men, you can feel in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever, trying to create some financial independence. What I've noticed in the last couple of months, it gives you no better feeling in the world than creating something of your own and starting your own business. And even for me, being able to travel to multiple countries and have peace and joy and happiness in your life, mashallah. So what I'm saying to the women that view this channel is, if you're in your 20s, even if you're early 30s, you're 30, you're really pushing it, because you have a lot of competition with a lot of beautiful 21, 22, 23-year-old women, and they're offering the same thing as you, no difference. They're feminine, they don't mind cooking, they don't mind setting the home nice for the man. When he get off from work, she's open to have his bath water ready, nice music on, candle, his dinner. And this is what men want, peace. And if a woman can provide that, 1,000 more women, then you got a lot of competition. So this is what I was happy when these women told me that they're married now and they're so happy. So hopefully, the women that view this, either you are married, and maybe you could share this with a friend if you think it's helpful. The other thing I noticed is, like, sometimes when a man is in a relationship with a woman and he said something, sometimes the women don't listen. And sometimes some women don't listen to nothing men say, but they'll listen to the opinions of other women. I just find that weird sometimes, because they're trying to find a man. So what better way to get the man's opinion, not so much women? But Gotta love them. So yeah, so this is what I wanted to say. For some women, there's 1,000 women out there offering the same thing to a man that some women will say, "Oh, what I'm giving is valuable," and you think that you're doing everything, but you got competition. Now, moving along, um, like I was saying, I have two gentlemen, Doc and Roger. They every time I come back in the country, like I would just be walking down the hallway in the hospital. It's like, "Oh, Elliot, you back? I ain't seen you. I didn't know when you was coming back. You've been gone for a long time, man. I ain't see you. Where you in at this time?" And I always tell them my story. Next thing they want to see my pictures, and these men were so happy for me, and it's unusual sometimes because just like what some people say, it's like when you get successful, not everybody's going to be happy for you, or people see you out doing things, they're not as happy. But I think these two gentlemen were happy just because they've traveled often. So when I told them my story, they were happy. But I noticed that not so many other people um, were happy about me traveling out the country. And we have a problem sometimes, even in the Black community, when one Black person sees another being successful, it's almost as if they feel bad too, or have this little thing of envious and jealousy raise up in them. And it's okay though, because one thing that I learned in interpersonal communication, sometimes another thing what people do is, if I said I went on a trip to Italy, someone else could say, "Oh, we went and we got on a yacht and we went to Nice and then we went to Montenegro." So that's like you're trying to one up one another. That's what people do. But in this case, it was just that, you know, in the U.S. sometimes when I speak to others in the Black community about, oh, doing this, it's like you get the little side eye. And this is why I say paying attention to body language and facial expressions, because this is how people tell you non-verbally how they feel about you. So it's important. But one thing that Doc said when he was talking to me, he's like, "Elliot, you're doing things that some people dream and wish that they could do. They wish that they could travel the world," or they'll say, "Hey, I'll eventually do it in the future, or I'll save my money now and maybe I'll do it when I get married or when I so and so or whatever." And then they become sick or ill or don't have the sick and ill, same thing, but say, they don't have the finances to do so. And when I say ill, it can mean that, maybe they have some health issues that doesn't allow them to leave and go this place. Just like if I know, well, I guess the UAE, I know they're very specific about what drugs and medications can, and depending on what disease a person or whatever may have traveling the country and things like that. In the UAE, and I imagine a few Muslim countries would probably have those same laws. But but yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. But the other thing is, the main thing, even when I mentioned this thing about Doc and with Roger is, even like I say, even me thinking of as a man in my 20s, and just like I said, I'm 38. So my thing is, when I see a lot of older men that I've worked with in the past that were envious and jealous of me working almost every day and stuff like that. It made me not want to grow up to be men like them and just have the look of shame or look as if they've been chewing on a bag of lemons, just miserable. Um, so what I would encourage you all to do, men and women, uh, to get up every day, be productive, get up every day, be productive. Don't put things off that you can accomplish today. Give your best. Count those little small wins that you make, even though we all experience hardships and, you go through life and um, some days are better than others. And what I try to do, if I'm having a not so good day, like let's say like all the bills come at one time, the woman ain't acting right, uh, so much going on. I can't seem to solve anything or get things to go my way. I take a nap. That's what I do first, take a nap. I take a nap, and I don't care if I sleep for the whole day. I take a nap. Um, but I would say at the same time, me taking a nap, the other thing I tend to do is like for the last 3 days, I've been feeling a little sick. I don't know if it was something I ate, but I made sure that I, worked on my content. Um, Went to the gym like 3 days ago. Now my body is so hot, like just like today. Like every time I try to rest, even though it's probably after midnight now. Yeah, it's midnight. My body is on fire, and I know when my body gets like that, I know that my metabolism is up, which is good because I mean I'm getting skinny. Um, in the summertime is coming. But yeah, so I try to get up and be productive, even when I feel ill or if nothing doesn't work. I, just take a nap. Um, and the reason why I do this, instead of putting things off, what I can accomplish today, and keeping in mind that, we can't be so selfish to think that um, we are going to live to see tomorrow. We just hope to see tomorrow. So I pray that anyone watching this video has gained some value out of it. As again, I appreciate you all that have been watching my videos, and thank you so much for that. I wish you all a wonderful week. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Masalama. Did I hit the button?